to this new edition of our podcast series on conversations about Africa's development. My name is Nico Koza, and I'm pleased to bring you this edition from Durban, South Africa. Now, the purpose really of these conversations is to demystify complex development issues and really make them understandable to the normal human being on the ground. This evening, I am joined by two esteemed individuals and personalities. I have with me the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. Welcome, sir. I am also joined by Her Excellency, the CEO of the African Union Development Agency, Madam Naros Bekele Thomas. Welcome. This is a conversation that I'm quite excited about generally. We are here in Durban, Excellencies. Two technical teams have been assembled from AUDA-NEPAD as well as the Secretariat. Now, I want to know, perhaps from you, Madam CEO, why are the teams here? What are we hoping to achieve at the end of this engagement?
Thank you very much. I think, what we need to do to understand is the fact that, the African Union has got the unique tools and products to conduct its socioeconomic transformation processes. The first one is unique because it has got its own Vision 2063. In actual terms, the SDG was preceded by the Vision 2063 and was inspired and informed by Vision 2063. And this vision has been translated in terms of 10-year implementation plans and has its identified priority areas and goals. And one of the major goals to achieving transformation in Africa, it was the creation of the AfCFTA, and we're so happy that AfCFTA is created, is functioning very well, and we have got an able, capable person leading it. And from the other perspective also, the African Union Development Agency was created as, in a way NEPAD was there, but NEPAD just had programs for Africa, but it didn't have the expansive development programs that is contained with the implementation plan. And therefore, the African Union Development Agency was created to be able to coordinate with development activities, identify gaps, filling the gaps, and make sure that the resources that are required are mobilized and results are monitored. And therefore, it's just normal that these two important organs get together and identify synergies and work together in terms of meeting the set targets and results. For us in African Union Development Agency, we're very happy to have a partner in the AfCFTA. Leadership is really very progressive, and we have got a very, very good relationship and partnership. And the whole objective is to make sure that there is coordination, there is no duplication, there is no parallel operation, but that we work together hand in hand, understanding the fact that socioeconomic development challenges in Africa are intertwined, interdependent, and interlinked. So this is the objective, and this is the second time that we are meeting.
Thank you very much, and I think you pick up on a very crucial element. And if we look at Agenda 2063, it is going to take a multiplicity of stakeholders and organs working together to deliver on this really ambitious vision. And then taking from that, you mentioned Vision 2063, and I'm going to point my attention to you, SG. When we look at the AfCFTA, it is one of the 30 flagship projects of Agenda 2063. When we, in May 2019, all of us were very excited when the agreement came into force. We've been watching with keen interest. When we look at the potential that the AfCFTA has to bring millions of people out of poverty and create income opportunities, I think that the question would be exactly how is the AfCFTA doing that? Would you care to speak to that for a while?
Well, thank you very much again for the conversation, and I also want to thank Madam CEO, Her Excellency, for the very, very good working relationship and the leadership. Clearly, the AfCFTA needs AUDA-NEPAD. We have a very, very narrow mandate, and that is implementation of the AfCFTA, the agreement itself, but we do so in a broader mandate of development. And coming to your point on Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, that is a blueprint for Africa's development. So it's important that AUDA-NEPAD leads on that. One of the projections of the AfCFTA is that by 2035, there is potential to lift 100 million people out of poverty, 70 million people out of moderate poverty, lift people out of abject poverty, increase Africa's GDP by up to $450 billion, and boost intra-African trade. And the beneficiaries of all of these projections are small and medium enterprises that are led by women. That is a very, very significant impact of a trade agreement, positive impact of a trade agreement on development. So we don't see it just as an instrument for trade, enabling trade, which it is. It is also an enabler for economic development, for growth, creating opportunities. One of the areas that we are discussing in detail is, for example, youth empowerment, young entrepreneurs, how they benefit from this trade agreement, this market of 1.4 billion people, how we make sure that a young person in Kenya has access to a market in Nigeria, that they know how to trade and take advantage of this agreement. This is the impactful potential that we are working towards to making sure it becomes a reality.
Yeah, so basically tangible outcomes that can really be seen, and you made beneficiaries, whether it's young people, or it's women, or SMEs in general. And I think this is what the people on the ground want to see. As institutions, as the AUDA-NEPAD does its work, and the AfCFTA, I think the overriding question becomes, how do we see that impact on the ground? And you've mentioned it quite well there. So allow me to shift my attention just slightly related to what you've said, SG. You've spoken about all of the benefits that definitely accrue if we're able to successfully implement this agreement, which I have no doubt we will be able to do so. And I know that in some of the discussions that have happened previously between the two institutions is to say, let us take an overarching look at the whole architecture, basically, when we come to implementing the free trade agreement. And perhaps begin to think about countries that rely heavily, for example, on tariffs and whatnot. Now, when we look at the trade agreement, progressively the idea is to eliminate those tariff and non-tariff barriers. So, Madam CEO, I want to find out from your point of view, would an impact study that looks at the impact, yes, of implementing the free trade area be necessary, and what value would it bring to the entire process?
The impact study would identify the areas of, the economic structures of each country, and looks at it from the free trade perspective and sees what kind of impact this free trade will have on the economy in general of the country, on the revenue of the country, the cost of living, the standards of living of the people, so that if there are any negative impacts, then AUDA-NEPAD, together with the AfCFTA, would engage in developing a strategy to mitigate the negative impact, so that it is a long-term trajectory of growth, which requires AfCFTA, which requires trade, fostering trade, intra-African trade. Without that, there will not be really growth. And therefore, it's so important that we engage into that. And we have agreed that we will have the impact study undertaken as soon as possible, because AfCFTA, its work wisdom, under the leadership of the SG, has already helped countries to come out with a plan, the AfCFTA plan. But this plan should be informed with an in-depth analysis of the impact of the AfCFTA and zoom into areas of weaknesses and strengthen the weaknesses in the economy so that, all countries benefit from the free trade.
Absolutely. When we talk about benefiting from the free trade area, I mean, one really big constituency, as you mentioned, would be the private sector. So I do see the private sector, yes, as a beneficiary of the AfCFTA, but also a stakeholder. So I'm keen to understand from the point of view of the Secretariat, what mechanisms are there to, one, engage with the private sector, but I think also to challenge them to become active stakeholders in the implementation of the trade agreement.
You're absolutely correct. The private sector is a pillar of implementation. Governments don't trade. It is the private sector that trades, that creates jobs and investment and innovation. And so we have developed a strategy, a private sector engagement strategy. And the thrust of that private sector engagement strategy is how to leverage on African SMEs, large corporations, for them to, as I said, to be a pillar of implementation. We hosted the first AfCFTA Business Forum 2 months ago. That business forum was very successful in mobilizing the private sector for implementation of the AfCFTA. The attendance there was, there was a range. We had CEOs of large corporations, we had entrepreneurs, we had small medium enterprises, a range of different private sector stakeholders fully engaged in implementation of the AfCFTA, in identifying the challenges, in identifying the opportunities. And so we will continue to work with the private sector to continuously engage the private sector for identification, identifying, as I say, where are the challenges, where are the opportunities, if there are specific value chains that are offering opportunities, the pharmaceutical sector, agriculture and agro-processing, we identify these opportunities together, and we map out with the private sector, we map out a continental approach to private sector engagement and opportunities. One of the very important areas that we are discussing with the private sector is import substitution. If you take, for example, pharmaceuticals and the amount of pharmaceutical products that we import, or even in agriculture, Africa is a net food importer. How do we make sure that we shift from being a net food importer to producing agriculture for the continent, producing food for the continent, producing pharmaceuticals for the continent? These things will require private sector engagement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you're saying that, SG, I'm actually even, picking up the synergies that you mentioned at the beginning. So of course, when you speak about areas of agriculture, value chains, pharmaceuticals, these are areas that AUDA-NEPAD has competencies in and can really support the AfCFTA in ascertaining this broad vision that we have. As we round up to a close, maybe I'll just raise one or two more issues. The two technical teams are busy in engagements, discussions to come out with a consolidated plan of what can be done between these two institutions. And I think invariably an element that will come up will be the element of resources. I'd like to get your thoughts, CEO, when it comes to resource mobilization, what can be done jointly to ensure that whatever we need to implement our ambitious plans is actually attained?
Like the SG said, the plan you said, the question was so relevant in terms of resource mobilization. The private sector engagement is one means of resource mobilization. Why? Because in the private sector engagement, like the SG just explained, there will be the big companies and the small companies working together. And there will be business facilitation. This business facilitation is supported by businesses themselves, for businesses themselves, meaning within the value chain, there will be business facilitation from, from the supply and demand side. If there is a big company producing finished good, and there are other intermediary businesses and primary producers, then these engagements would help in identifying, like you said, what are the problems of the value chain, and how can the end producer help the intermediary producer in coming up with the quality of products that they would need for in the production processes. And therefore, from primary to intermediary to the big companies, they will be discussing the needs and also try to help each other in terms of mobilizing the resources. When we say resources, it's not just financial resources, but technical material resources to upgrade and to scale up and to upscale, the production of the value chain. So this is one bit of it. But the second thing, which is very critical and very important that we discussed today, is that there is no way that, in a silo, that we will be mobilizing the resources that we require to undertake the activities which really need a high level of resources. It's not the 50,000, 60,000 that would make a difference, right? So, by, joining hands and joining efforts, we can be able to mobilize resources together. So one of the action items that we put in place today is to come up with a joint resource mobilization strategy. When we go to EU, when we go to, the American, the DFS, when we go to any other, China or elsewhere, then we go together as a joint AU team, okay, an Africa team which is bound together and working together to deliver results and impacts for the people and the continent. That way we can make a difference.
No, absolutely, and I think really what is coming out from this conversation as I begin to wrap up, I'm hearing clearly issues of synergy within AU organs. I'm hearing coordination become extremely important to make sure that as AU institutions, they can leverage off of each other's strengths. So, parting shots, we're almost done. So perhaps I'll start with you, SG. What if we were to say forecast into the future, let's say 2063 for argument's sake, what is it that this collaboration ought to have tangibly delivered that those who are coming in 2063 can look back and say, indeed, this was something useful, this endeavor?
One of the areas that's really important is, which we discussed today, is small medium enterprises and inclusion. We know that Africa's economy is driven by small medium enterprises, creating over 450 million jobs, contributing close to 60% to Africa's GDP. If we are to succeed, to have inclusion in Africa's economy, informal traders, small medium enterprises, to take advantage of this large market, I think that we would have succeeded in meeting the objectives of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and creating opportunities. That is, in my view, the measure of success that we are working towards. How do we make sure we have inclusivity, benefits of Africa's economic development?
All right, sounded up very well. Madam CEO, I'm going to come to you for your closing remarks as well in terms of, what are those key elements that as we close off this podcast series, you want to leave pondering in our minds?
Well, one of the objectives is really the expansion of the economy. But like the SG said, and like what we have been discussing, the main important challenge here is really the youth, integration of youth, inclusivity, like you said. it's very important that each and every citizen of the continent becomes participatory, but also beneficiary of the economy. So integrating the youth in what we are working, in making sure that they are facilitated to express their creativity, innovation in terms of startups, in terms of building their own SMEs is critically very important, and they need to be supported. And this is where our joint effort comes. And we don't want to see, our young ones drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. We would like them really to be traveling by boat, carrying goods and products across the continent. And this is where the free trade comes. So, in 2063 and before 2063, for Christ's sake, in the coming 5 years, we have to make sure that these youth are involved and engaged in the productive sector of our economy, and they contribute to the socio-economic transformation of this continent. And to do that, we would like them to be part and parcel of the policy making process. Really, they should really be able to participate in policy decision making, and also be actively engaged in the private sector. And this is what we always do in the district whenever we meet. How do we get these young ones to be involved in the economic sector? And this is what our dreams are, and this is not going to be just a dream. This is going to be really a call for action, which we are seriously together taking into consideration.
No, absolutely, and absolutely well said that the youth need to be engaged quite actively, because when we talk about 2063, it is the youth that will be in 2063. So what are those building blocks that we begin to put together to really get us to that vision? I love what you said. Goodness, not 2063. The next 5 years, what can we do? What are those building blocks incrementally to get us to 2063? Madam CEO, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. If it was up to me, we would continue. But I would like to say thank you very much for making the time. The insights really were instrumental, and I think the main aim of such a series is to break down these complex issues into issues and matters that the ordinary person can understand. My name is Nico Koza, and thank you very much. See you in our next conversation.
Thank you.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
very much.